Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, going to be giving you guys a complete tier list for the meta, currently all 58 brawlers in the game, ranking them from the worst to the very best. So before we jump into it, make sure you're using the create code, that'd be greatly appreciated. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay, so starting off this ranking, starting off with the worst brawler inside of the game. At number 58, we have Jackie. So Jackie, clearly the worst brawler inside of the game right now, has to have the worst pick rate in competitive. I don't remember the last time I seen her being played in competitive. She's really useless, got no range, no good maps for her right now. She's the worst brawler inside of the game. At number 57, we have Edgar. So Edgar, again, clearly one of the worst brawlers inside of the game right now. He doesn't have many maps which he can thrive on. The only map I can think of in the Power League rotation is actually Split, and that's very specific situations where Edgar can pop off. There've got to be brawlers that have no cancellations, don't have a lot of DPS up close, so only the likes of like Rico, Barley, Mr. P, a couple more scenarios where Edgar can be strong in, but just overall, he gets taken out by so many brawlers really quickly. So at number 56, we have Primo. So Primo just sucks right now. There's not really a map or a mode where I would actually use Primo on. The only viable strategy for me is on Split, where you have a Gale launchpad, where you can just fling in any tank, but still the other tanks are just way better than him. He really struggles, especially with gears, and when people use the speed gear, it can really counter Primo because it's really hard to get up close with a brawler like him because he just lacks in range a lot. He really is bad in this meta. So next up at number 55, we have Nita. So it's been a long time since Nita's been anywhere near the meta. She's easily a bottom 10 brawler and has been for such a long time. So the reason why Nita is so bad is because her bear barely gets any value. Her main attack doesn't do a lot of damage as well, and a lot of people can close the gap between her, and she doesn't do a lot of damage up close. So the speed gear, ever since that's been invented, literally she's sucked so bad. So Nita is in desperate need of a buff. Okay, so next up at number 54, we have Dino. So the main reason why Dynamite is near the bottom is because he gets countered too easily, thus his pick rate is really bad in competitive. Don't think I've seen him being played much, especially since maps like Hot Potato have been removed and Super Stadium. He used to be a really solid last pick there, because they're not in a competitive / Power League rotation anymore. It just seems to slow down in the meta a little bit, but still, providing that he can get the right matchup, Dynamite can still absolutely pop off. Okay, so next up at number 53, we have Mr. P. So I feel like Mr. P was really overrated, especially when he got his rework. He was used quite a lot, but I didn't really see much success rate with him, and just over time the meta has really shifted away from him. There's a lot of good aggro picks in this meta, and he still doesn't really counter brawlers, those long range brawlers, that well. I just feel like he's kind of fallen off. He doesn't really counter too many brawlers in this meta. So next up at number 52, we have Buzz. So Buzz really has slipped through the rankings, especially since Worlds last year. As time has gone on, Buzz has just fallen off that much, just because other brawlers have just power crept him, and just overall people have learned how to face off against Buzz. Don't think it was really helped with the addition of gears as well, and you see him being picked a little bit in competitive right now, but whenever I've seen him being played, he just isn't winning whatsoever. Even when he's facing off against his counters, it's just really hard to get multiple kills with Buzz, because by the time you've got one kill, you're either pretty much like one shot, or you're going to get pinched down so slowly. So yeah, Buzz, I just feel like it takes forever to get super as well. He isn't the strongest right now. Okay, so next up at number 51, we have Shelly. So she's kind of slipped through the rankings a little bit here, because there's just a lot of better tank counters out there. She still does her role pretty well, but for her to really work, I feel like there's just better options. So the likes of Gale, Ems, there's just a couple of the options which are just better tank counters overall, and just better against a lot of different matchups. But you'd only really use Shelly if those brawlers were banned, but she still does counter tanks really hard, so still all right in this meta. So as you guys can see, there's a quick recap of brawlers 58 to 51. I'll be doing this for every 10 brawlers within the video, so you guys don't get completely lost. But anyways, moving into brawler number 50, we have Bull. So Bull right now, the main reason why he's not too strong, because a lot of the maps got removed from the competitive map pool, which he really thrived on. There was a couple of heist maps which he was a really good pick on, just because he's really good at just getting consistent damage. But overall, I just feel like he's a little bit lackluster in this meta. There's not really many scenarios where you'd actually pull out a Bull, and even against the brawlers that Bull counters, as I feel like he doesn't really do as good as a job as he used to. So yeah, he's slowly slipping down in the rankings. Okay, so next up at number 49, we have Meg. So you guys might be surprised by this ranking. The main reason why I put her so low is just because of her pick rate, especially in the competitive map pool. I don't see her being used pretty much anywhere, even on hot zone maps where she used to be so good on. I just think over time people have realized there's a lot better alternatives out there, but she's still decent across the board. Like, she's still usable on ladder on a lot of different maps and modes, but again, there's just a lot of different brawlers that just specialize in a lot of different things, whereas she doesn't really do that. She takes a long time to cycle her super as well, and if you're a good enough player, you can easily capitalize whenever she gets out of that mech suit. I just feel like Meg isn't really that strong in this meta. So at number 48, we have Barley. So you might be surprised about this one again, but mainly because of the competitive map pool. A lot of the maps that he used to be so good as a last pick on have been removed, so I'm mainly basing this tier list off like use rate, win rate, ban rate, etc, but mainly within the competitive or power league kind of rating. So this is why Barley has slipped off quite a lot. I wouldn't really say he's like completely trash or unusable, but just a lot of different brawlers that just do a lot better things than him right now. And as I said, like, he's a really map dependent brawler, and he really has to depend on certain brawlers to face off against. Like on Super Stadium, for example, he's really strong at countering Spike. I just feel like there's not many situations where you can use Barley right now, so that's why he's one of the worst. So next up at number 47, we have BB. So since her buff, she did get picked a little bit more, especially in the Asia competitive region. But as time has gone on and as the map pool has evolved a little bit, her pick rate has gone down significantly. She's still a decent brawler and a good counter to brawlers like Cole. So that's why she's a little bit higher than some of these brawlers on the rank. So next up at number 46, we have Jessie. I wouldn't really say she's the strongest brawler in the meta right now, but there are a few maps in the game where she can really thrive, especially just because of her turret. That's the main reason why she's strong, is because on some maps you can really abuse the turret behind the wall, and it can be pretty hard for the enemies to get out of that spawn trap. So a couple of maps like this are like Dueling Beetles, like a Deep Diner. I'm seeing her being played on quite a bit in competitive right now. No, it's not in the power league rotation, but definitely getting some strong use right there. And then also on Double Switch as well, been seeing her use a fair bit in the middle, but just overall her turret just completely carries. So next up at number 45, we have Poco. So I know I said I mainly base this off of power league and the competitive, where Poco is one of the worst used rate brawlers within it, just because it doesn't really suit the Poco like double tank kind of synergy. But overall, I still feel like Poco is a decent support brawler. I just feel like it's not made for the draft system, but there are some rare occasions where I've seen Poco being played because the enemy hasn't picked sufficient tank counters, so he can run like Poco and one tank, for example. So he's still a fairly decent brawler, but he does struggle on his. So next up at number 44, we have Grom. So Grom, ever since he got nerfed, he kind of fell off the face of earth because his mechanics are really hard to use, especially up close. But as time has gone on, people have got used to him a little bit. At long range, he can be really strong, especially in knockout and on a few Brawl maps and on a few bounty maps as well. I feel like though, especially if you're on ladder, it can be pretty risky to play him because he gets countered so easily by aggro brawlers. But as I said, in the right scenario, Grom can be devastating because of how much damage he does put out. Okay, so next up at number 43, we have Lu. So Lu has slowly crept up in the meta. Not many changes being made to him within the last few updates, but people just finally realizing how strong he can be, especially in Hot Zone. I've even seen him being used on Canal Grande in NA, and they tend to ban him a lot more than EU. So just goes to show that in particular metas, Lu can definitely thrive. If you're cycling your super, it can be so strong because it covers a lot of the map. You can just cycle it really easily and get a lot of damage out, but especially on Hot Zone, it's really strong right now. Next up at number 42, we have Rosa. So Rosa has been slowly going down in the meta as people realize how to counter her, especially since the gears have been introduced. She used to be one of the best brawlers at the beginning of gears, but now, as I said, at number 42, so getting much weaker. There are a couple of maps that she still is really strong on, like Canal Grande. She's one of the best brawlers there. She's also pretty good on Hard Rap Mine and Sneaky Fields as well if the enemy don't have sufficient tank counters. So next up at number 41, we have Colt. So Colt is really strong in the game mode Heist and especially Safe Zone, but it doesn't really have a lot of maps and modes, to be honest, but it does depend on like how good you are mechanically. If you hit your shots with Colt, you're going to do a lot of damage, so I would say he's one of the worst brawlers inside of the game, but he does have his map specialists. So next up at number 40, we have Frank. So Frank is only this high because he counters one of the best brawlers inside of the game, which is Ash. But just overall, a good Frank can always pop off, especially in Brawl, but he isn't really too viable on a lot of maps and he can get countered pretty easily. But as I said, he's an amazing counter to some brawlers in the game. Okay, so jumping into the 39th best brawler inside of the game right now, we have Otis. So Otis isn't really that great right now, a new brawler in the meta, but I feel like he's super weak right now. It takes so long to get his super, doesn't do a lot of damage, but I feel like over time, once his star power comes out next, his second one, he's going to be really strong because you get an extra shot, you get extra DPS, so look out for that new star power, but for now, he's really weak. Okay, so next up at 38, we have Griff. So Griff is a brawler which is only really good on certain maps like Split, where you really need like a wall break option, and he can be good in that category because he's good against tanks in those 1v1s, and also just good at breaking open the maps so your teammates can pop off even more. But I would say he's just a fairly balanced brawler right now. Okay, so next up at number 37, one of the most popular brawlers inside of a game, we have Mortis. So Mortis isn't really the best in this meta because people have really wisened up in the draft format. They won't really leave themselves to get countered by assassin brawlers like Mortis, hence why he's a little bit low in the meta. He's also been nerfed a lot with Creepy Harvest going down quite a bit in his healing. I just think overall there's a lot of brawlers in this meta as well that have some type of escape mechanism, or like a counter, like a stun, like a slow, something like that to counter him. There's just so many brawlers and mechanics right now where Mortis is really struggling as an assassin. Okay, so next up at number 36, we have Tara. So the main reason why Tara is so low, because in Power League and competitive, she has one of the worst pick rates because just so many better lanes and other options out there right now, and she can leave herself to get countered a little bit too easily. She just takes a little bit too long to get her super right now, so that's why she's pretty weak. She's only really good on a handful of maps, and those are going to be mainly on Brawl and Gem Grab, but just overall a lot of better options than her right now. So next up at number 35, we have Amber. So I would say she's pretty much the most underrated brawler within this meta, just because there's a couple maps in the game right now where she completely dominates on. So those are maps like Double Swoosh, a lot of Brawl maps she can be pretty strong on because you can be really passive with her, especially because of that star power like Backyard Bowl. I've been seeing her being used quite a lot, and also some knockout maps as well because of her passive playstyle. You can be really strong with Amber. So yeah, I would say she's pretty decent, especially on those grassy maps because you can just burn them open as well. So next up at number 34, we have 8-Bit. So 8-Bit specializes on those maps that are really defensive because it's really hard to push him, especially because he's good at long range and also up close because of his high DPS. So maps like Backyard Bowl, where in the meta it's just so slow paced, he's really good on. Kaboom Canyon, there's also Gem Grab, where he's one of the best mids because he's pretty much good against everything on maps like Hard Rock Mine and Minecraft Madness, for example. So yeah, 8-Bit is a fairly balanced brawler right now. Okay, so next up at number 33, we have Eve. So this is another shocking pick in the fact that a lot of people will actually expect Eve to be like a top 15 or top 10 brawler, but I don't think Eve is anywhere near there right now. The main reason being is because she doesn't really have a map or mode that she completely thrives on. There's just so many better options than her in the meta right now. She takes a long time to get her super, even on maps with a lot of water. She's not really used too much on like Canal Grande, for example. She's kind of falling off in that meta as well. I just feel like as well at longer ranges, she's a little bit easy to dodge the shots on. Up close, she can do a lot of damage, but it's just a lot of different snipers in the game right now that can counter her. So I'll just say she's somewhat of a balanced brawler because you can still play her across multiple game modes. So next up at number 32, we have Brock. So Brock is a brawler that relies a lot on his synergy with other long range brawlers because he's only really used in compositions that have those snipers with him, because he'll break open walls with his rocket fuel, where on game modes like Knockout it can be really essential to get so many kills, and there's a lot of different maps where he's strong on there. Heist as well, there's a couple maps where a wall break is essential. So basically on maps that you can break open the map a lot and have brawlers like Piper, Byron Bell, etc., he can really pop off. Okay, so next up at number 31, we have Spike. So a lot of people are going to be really surprised by this one, but I think in terms of competitive, he has to be one of the worst pick rate brawlers inside of meta right now, mainly because there's just so many different better lane options where you see like maps that are really open as well. You don't really see Spike being picked on too much because I think since they nerfed him with that gadget, it's just really hurts him in his 1v1 scenarios, and especially at the higher end, people can dodge curveball pretty effectively near enough every single time. So that's why he's kind of fallen off a little bit. Maybe I'm underrating him a little bit, but in my eyes and eyes of many pros, he has really fallen off in this meta. So next up at number 30, we have Fang. So Fang has been slept on just a little bit, but within Knockout, he's a really strong last pick. Against so many of the strong brawlers in Knockout, he can absolutely pop off on. He's not going to be the broken brawler of the past where he could just spam auto aim, but you've got to play it really perfectly. Make sure you're supering on the brawlers when they're low on ammo or kind of out out of stuns, but it can definitely be a pop-off. Next up at number 29, we have Nani. So Nani is especially strong on multiple game modes right now, especially Heist, Knockout, and Bounty. Those long-range maps she's really going to thrive on. She can counter the other long-range brawlers as well. That's why she's so strong. And she also, in Heist, she can easily teleport onto the safe and get a lot of damage. So at number 28, we have B. So B is a brawler that's always brought out when you're looking to counter tanks, especially as in mid on multiple game modes, which is a really strong mid option. But even when you're out of those long-range options, B can be so strong because if you're consistently hitting those 3k shots, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage really fast. So B is one of those balanced brawlers in the meta right now. Next up at number 27, we have Sandy. So Sandy, ever since the recent nerf to his damage, he's just been falling off even more in the meta. So he's only really good on a handful of gem grab maps like Double Swoosh and Harder Up Mine, because a lot of time people can slowly feed you your super and it's really game changing still. But overall, Sandy just loses his 1v1 matchups a little bit too frequent now ever since the damage nerf, and just overall a lot of better lane options. So next up at number 26, we have Tick. So Tick continues to be one of the best brawlers in Knockout and Bounty, hence why he's so high up on the list. As time has gone on, he's been used a little bit less in Knockout and Bounty, but still because of how strong he can be in the right hands, especially with his super and gadget being able to defend yourself against aggro brawlers as well. It just feels like one of the better brawlers for that game mode, so that's why he's so high up. So next up at number 25, we have Sprout. So Sprout is ultimately the king of last picks. So whenever there's multiple squishy brawlers on an enemy team, you can kind of always rely on a Sprout. He's so good in Bounty and Knockout, also on like Backyard Bowl or just any kind of map where you've got a lot of walls you can hide behind but still have decent range and counter those really squishy brawlers. So as I said, as the meta's kind of evolved, last pick is becoming even stronger and stronger, hence why Sprout is still a strong brawler in this meta. So next up at number 24, we have Ems. So Ems, again, one of those brawlers that you can always rely on as like a first pick on multiple maps in Gem Grab and Brawl. But as time has gone on, there's a little bit less maps for her to play on, hence why she's fallen off a little bit in the rankings, but she's still a super strong brawler, especially when you want to counter those tanks. So next up at number 23, we have Daryl. So Daryl is insane in this meta. He's even got a stronger boost because of Carl. Carl is one of the strongest brawlers inside of a game, so Daryl being one of his strongest counters makes him really relevant and prevalent inside of this meta, especially in Power League where you can easily draft a Daryl if the enemy team gets that Carl. So across multiple game modes as well, he's really strong on Bounty, Heist, and multiple maps inside of Brawl and inside of Gem Grab as well. There's just a lot of different scenarios where you can pull out a Daryl and dominate with. Next up at number 22, we have Colette. So Colette has gone up in the meta just literally because of Carl. So again, probably get fed up of me saying it, but because Colette's such a good counter to Carl, she's pretty strong. So I've been seeing her used on some wacky game modes and maps, which just goes to show that because of how strong Carl is, it makes brawlers like Colette even more viable in the meta. So especially Heist, she's really strong in already, but across multiple game modes like Gem Grab, for example, like Brawl, you actually seen her being played quite a bit more. Okay, so next up at number 21, we have Surge. So again, just like Colette and Daryl, he counters Carl pretty hard, so that's why he's pretty strong in this meta. You can pretty much pull out a Surge whenever you see Carl, even in Bounty that you're seeing Surge being used just literally to counter Carl, but just overall you get a lot of value there, so that's why he's pretty strong. Next up at number 20, we have Piper. So Piper is the queen of Knockout now. She's fallen off a tiny bit in Bounty, but she's easily one of the better brawlers inside of Knockout. Just being able to get multiple shots onto the enemy really quickly, especially with her gadget, allows her to pop off even more so, and with her super as well, being able to break open the map on Knockout is essential, so that's why she's so strong there. As I said, she's good in Bounty, good on those long range Heist maps, good on long range Gem Grab maps as in mid, and also as a mid in Brawl. So across the board, Piper can be really strong as long as you've got your sniping shoes on. So next up at number 19, we have Jean. So maybe a little bit biased in this ranking, but whenever I see a Jean pulled out, he's incredibly strong because he doesn't really get countered by too many brawlers. He's a really strong synergy brawler, especially in game modes like Knockout. You can always rely on a Jean as like a first or second pick because again, he could just synergize with every single brawler inside of a game. He has multiple game modes where he can pop off in like Gem Grab, Brawl, Bounty. There's a lot of different scenarios where Jean is strong in. So next up at number 18, we have Rico. So as you guys know, on the right map, with a lot of walls on, Rico can absolutely hard carry. He has a really strong gadget, and just overall his mechanics can be really annoying and frustrating to face off against. So multiple maps in Gem Grabber can be pretty strong, like Hard Right Mine, where he's pretty much the best first pick there. There's a lot of maps in Knockout as well, where just because of the walls being able to apply pressure so easily, Rico is one of the best picks there. So just across the board, Rico is really strong right now. So next up at number 17, we have Byron. So even though he's received 2 hefty nerfs within the last 2 updates, I still think he's one of the strongest brawlers inside of a game. He's fallen off a little bit just because of that reload speed nerf. Of course, it's really going to hurt him in the DPS department, but also just trying to provide healing for your teammates. It's going to take a little bit longer to provide those, but just overall, he's one of those brawlers that you can pretty much always rely on. He's going to fit into literally every single composition inside of a game, and all the long range maps on, he's still going to be pretty good. Okay, so coming in at number 16, we have Leon. So Leon's one of those brawlers, again, which can pretty much go on every single map and mode except for Heist, because of how just annoying he is to deal with. He's pretty much good against every single matchup, but as time has gone on, and I think even more so within the next couple of weeks, I think he'll drop off the meta a little bit here. So a bit of a prediction, because people are using vision gear a lot more, so there's quite a lot of counters to him right now, like Jean with vision gear. You have Crow already. Stu is a good counter, but just over time I think people will slowly switch to the vision gear, and I feel like Leon will really hurt because mainly his super is the main reason why he's so strong. So next up at number 15, we have Pam. So Pam continues to be a really strong brawler again in the meta. That gadget of hers hasn't been nerfed yet, and I think until that gets nerfed, she'll still be a top 20 brawler easily. So across multiple maps and matchups, she's going to be super strong in, because it's not a lot of brawlers that can react to getting your ammo completely removed, right? And especially on those kind of passive maps as well, like Backyard Bowl, Double Swoosh, you're going to have a really hard time dealing with a Pam. So next up at number 14, we have Lola. So Lola continues to strive in this meta because of how strong she is on multiple long range maps and modes, especially Hot Zone and Heist, where she can just get so much control and damage because of her clone. So next up at number 13, we have Max. So Max is an incredibly underrated brawler when it comes to Power League. People still underrating her power, but in competitive, she's one of the best brawlers, mainly because of her synergy with a lot of different brawlers. You can easily catch people off guard if they're not prepared in the draft, or you just simply ban Crow. Max is going to be so strong, again, because of synergy, especially with brawlers like Sandy, brawlers like Ems, Tara. She's still super strong on, and she's pretty much good on every single map and mode as a mid. So next up at number 12, we have Gale. So Gale still proves to be one of the strongest brawlers in the game, mainly because of his super. He can pretty much deal with every matchup as long as he has his super, and he can cycle it pretty quickly. And the main reason why he's so strong as well is because of the draft, right? You can literally go at Gale to counter any aggro brawler inside of a game. He has multiple mechanics to deal with those, hence why he's so strong in the meta. So next up, coming in at number 11, we have Ash. So Ash still proves to be one of the strongest brawlers inside of a game, especially as a last pick, because he's a tank. You can't really go him as a first pick because they've got multiple counters to him. But if the enemy doesn't have at least like one strong counter to him, he's going to dominate, especially on game modes like Brawl and Gem Grab. He can really pop off on those grassy maps. So Ash is definitely a brawler to be scared of. So now moving into the top 10 brawlers in the game right now, starting off at number 10 with Stu. So Stu is an incredibly flexible brawler. By that I mean you can go him across different modes, different maps, changing up the star powers and the gadgets where need be. He's incredibly strong in game modes like Hot Zone. Gem Grabber can be a decent lane. Brawl as well on defensive maps, you can easily go for speed turret. There's just a lot of different ways to pop off as a Stu, and if you've got really low ping, you can easily change supers over and over again. So next up, coming in at the 9th best brawler in the game right now, we have Ruffs. So Ruffs did receive a pretty rough balance change last time around to his sandbags, which in turn did make him a little bit of a weaker brawler in the meta, but still he is super strong just because the amount of damage he can output. Being able to break up in walls with his super, being able to give an upgrade to you and your teammates is just such a super broken mechanic in the game. Just overall, he can be played on so many different maps and modes, making him one of the best brawlers inside of a game. So next up at number 8, we have Belle. So Belle has been creeping up in the meta just a little bit, again because of brawlers like Byron slipping out out a little bit, so the kind of sniper that she is, she's getting a bit stronger. So within like bounty, within knockout, she's so strong right now because she can be good against multiple matchups inside of a game. Gem grab, she's decent on backyard bowl as well. Those longer range maps, she can be pretty strong on just across the board. She's super flexible, making her so strong. So now moving on to the 7th strongest brawler within the meta right now. Of course, we have Bo. So ever since they increased his projectile speed, he's just became an absolute beast. He's so strong. Every single mode and map you can use Bo on. His synergy with a lot of different brawlers, being able to break open the map with his mines, being able to win so many matchups 1v1 because of how fast and the amount of damage he can produce. Overall, Bo is incredibly strong. So next up, as the 6th strongest brawler in the game right now, we have Squeak. So should be no surprises here. He continues to be such a strong brawler in this meta. Within competitive, he's one of the most banned out brawlers inside of a game. Within NA and EU, literally the 2nd and 3rd most banned out brawler. Just going to show how strong he is right there, because people don't want to be seeing that toxic gadget. Being able to block off a certain choke point with one gadget is so incredibly strong. So Squeak, he's one of the best brawlers right now. So next up, as the 5th best brawler inside of a game right now, it is easily going to be Penny. So Penny is incredibly strong right now. She doesn't actually rely off her turret for once, where previously she's been one of the worst brawlers inside of a game. Now she's the 5th best because of how good her main attack is, right? So just like Bo, she got an increase in her projectile speed and it easily made her one of the best brawlers inside of a game. You can get consistent damage now in 1v1 matchups with her gadget as well. When brawlers are close up, you can just delete them in a couple of shots. Her turret can be pretty annoying because it's got the balls of fire star power just equipped to it all the time now. Her star power is pretty decent as well. Just across the board, you can pretty much play her everywhere. Okay, so now moving into the 4th strongest brawler in the game right now, we have Crow. So Crow continues to be such an annoying brawler to face off against. His slow, being able to slow 3 people with just a push of a button for 5 seconds is so broken. I don't know how it's not been nerfed yet, but across multiple game modes and maps, he continues to be an absolute menace. His jump as well, being able to apply so much pressure with it and basically delete squishy brawlers is so OP. You're seeing him pretty much used everywhere and it just counters so many different brawlers right now. Okay, so jumping into the 3rd strongest brawler in the game right now, we have Janet. So she's so incredibly strong across multiple game modes right now. She's pretty much being banned everywhere, and if she's not banned, she's being used as a first pick because there's not many counters to her right now. She can fly across the map for so long, being able to just to launch onto any single target. She's so incredibly broken right now. Okay, so moving into the 2nd strongest brawler in the game right now, we have Bonnie. So she's absolutely crazy broken when it comes down to Power League and competitive. Literally banned out all the time if you don't have that first pick yourself. I rarely see her being played because she's just banned out pretty much every single time. The reason why she's so strong is because she's got such high HP, being able to shoot at such long range, and then once you build up your super, you can launch yourself onto pretty much any single matchup and win it near enough every single time. She's just crazy broken because of her mechanics. And now moving into the strongest brawler in the game right now, we have Carl. So Carl, you guys know, incredibly strong right now. Every single map and mode, I would say, is the ultimate first pick because he's so strong across multiple matchups. His super just shreds people alive so quickly. His gadget, you're able to pounce onto enemies really fast. But the thing with Carl is that it's not completely toxic because you do know his counters pretty easily, but I would still say he's the best brawler inside of a game just because of how the ability to pop off so quickly, being able to chain your super onto multiple people, especially with protective pirouette. Just being able to just dominate so easily with Carl makes him the strongest brawler in the game. Alright guys, it's going to be it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think of my ranking in the comment section below. It is a lot earlier than I normally make tier lists just because you guys just ask for it over and over again. So maybe in like a month's time, I might update it again to give you guys the final kind of rankings for this meta. But for now, the first few weeks, this has to be pretty accurate ranking as to which brawlers are really strong right now. So yeah, that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.